Grab the chain. Grab it. Grab it. Go. Go.
Mom, come on! Mom! Mom! Come on! Mom! Hey there, I'm Perry Nemiroff. Welcome to RT Essentials. Today we're venturing into uncharted waters to bring you our first ever scene-based episode centered on a specific filmmaker. And speaking of uncharted waters, he actually broke the record for deepest solo dive in human history, scraping the bottom of the Mariana Trench in a submersible vessel. But his records extend from the bottom of the Pacific to the top of the box office, having made 2 of the top 3 highest-grossing films ever. I am, of course, talking about James Cameron, multiple Oscar recipient of multiple honorary degrees from prestigious universities. He's got a star on the Hollywood and the Canadian Walk of Fame. Yes, there is a Canadian Walk of Fame, and there was even a species of frog named after him to honor his work promoting environmental awareness. Christomantis James Cameroni, a true riveting fact right there, I know. He might just be the king of the world of cinema, but for such a prolific career, Cameron has only directed 9 films, one of them being a short. So with that in mind, some movies will feature more than one scene. What do you want me to do? The guy likes to take his time with his movies. These right here are the most iconic James Cameron scenes. I'll be back, the Terminator.
Where is she?
Look, it may take a while. You want to wait? There's a bench over there.
I'll be back.
Up first is I'll Be Back from Cameron's game-changing sci-fi actioner, The Terminator. Easily one of the most famous lines in movie history, right up there with, "I'm going to make him an offer he can't refuse." This line was so iconic, it became Arnold Schwarzenegger's lifelong catchphrase. And not only would he go on to use it in many of his later films, but he also wrote it in wet cement above his handprints at Grumman's Chinese Theater. I'll Be Back is literally cemented in Hollywood. In Terminator, Arnold plays the titular cyborg assassin sent back in time to kill Sarah Connor. Connor is being targeted by Skynet, a sinister artificial intelligence system that hopes to prevent her from giving birth to her son, John, who will one day save mankind from extinction. But Sarah isn't alone. A human resistance fighter named Reese has also been sent back in time to protect her. Sarah and Reese find themselves in police custody, so Arnold shows up at the police station sporting his gargoyle sunglasses, stopping at nothing to get to Sarah. The Terminator's power is on full display as he single-handedly massacres the entire police force within the building, unfazed by the heavy gunfire aimed directly at him. You can sense the fear and helplessness in Sarah as Terminator closes in, but just before all hope is lost, Reese comes to the rescue and the two narrowly flee to safety. It's a truly horrifying sequence, one that solidified Arnold's Terminator as one of the greatest villains in cinema history. Arnold originally wanted that line to be, "I will be back" instead, noting that it sounded more like a robot to say, "I will" instead of "I'll," to which Cameron replied with something along the lines of, "You don't teach me how to write, and I don't teach you how to act." Imagine how different this scene, and potentially the entire franchise, might have been with that one word change. The Titanic sinks. Titanic.
Give me your hand, I'll pull you over! Come on! Give me your hand! Give me your hand! I've got you! I won't let go! Come on, I've got you!
The Titanic sinks is the climactic scene from the 1997 disaster film Titanic, We all knew this moment was coming, but that didn't make it any less shocking or emotional, especially considering the gripping romance that had blossomed between protagonists Rose and Jack, who we were rooting for since their first meeting on the ship's stern when Rose wanted to jump into the ocean but Jack stopped her. Like most of Cameron's films, the Titanic pushed the boundaries of special effects, using a blend of CGI and practical sets to bring us back in time, and all aboard the luxury ocean liner. The crew built a 90% scale replica of the original ship, utilizing private blueprints supplied by Harlan and Wolff, who had built the real thing. This 775-foot replica was constructed in a 17-million-gallon tank at a studio built specifically for this production in Baja, Mexico. The massive set could tilt to various angles, with the ship's rear able to detach and tilt a full 90 degrees for some of the shots in this sequence. Additionally, several miniatures were created for the more complex shots, like when the ship breaks in half and its keel and propellers crash down on all those poor souls in the water below. This was also one of the first films to ever use motion capture technology for some of the stunts that would have been otherwise impossible to achieve. These pioneering techniques combined to give the historical event the most accurate and impactful portrayal imaginable. It also won Titanic an Oscar for Best Visual Effects, plus another 10 Oscars, but, we're not here to brag. Highest grossing movie ever at the time, 4 Golden Globes, 4 Grammys, made grown men cry like babies as well. Marine ambush aliens.
Oh my god. Oh, give me the light.
Next up, Marine Ambush from the sci-fi horror Aliens, the sequel to Ridley Scott's Alien released in 1979. Those familiar with the franchise will know just how terrifying a xenomorph can be, basically not the type of creature you want to be stuck on a spaceship with. Sigourney Weaver's character Ellen Ripley learned that the hard way in the first film, and the only thing worse than one xenomorph is a bunch of xenomorphs, angry ones that don't particularly seem to care for the human species. In this scene, Ripley and a crew of battle-hardened Marines are swarmed by aliens during an expedition to the moon planet LV-426. The crew had deployed to the planet to investigate the loss of communication with a terraforming colony, only to discover that said colony had been wiped out by the xenomorphs, with the only survivor being a young girl nicknamed Newt. A mother-daughter bond between Ripley and Newt immediately forms, so the stakes are heightened even more in this shootout as Ripley feels a duty to protect the young girl at all costs.
Let's go! Let's go! Go! Move, Robin! Let's go!
In addition to Weaver, the film stars Michael Biehn, who plays Reese in The Terminator, and Bill Paxton, who plays Private Hudson. Cameron wrote the character Hudson specifically for Paxton, and Paxton went through real Marine training to prepare for the role. Many of Hudson's lines were improvised, including his famous "Game over, man" quote, but Hudson's real secret weapons were his powerful F-bombs, many of which feature in this scene. In fact, the F-word was used 25 times in this movie, and 18 of those times it was used by Hudson. Na'vi vs. Humans, Final Battle, Avatar. Na'vi vs. Humans is the final battle in the sci-fi epic Avatar. Set on the lush alien planet of Pandora, the Na'vi are the indigenous humanoids who inhabit the land, and one such Na'vi, known as Neytiri, falls in love with a former Marine turned Avatar named Jake Sully. Jake and Neytiri fight against the invading human colony led by Colonel Quaritch, who hopes to demoralize the Na'vi population by destroying their sacred tree of souls, which happens to sit atop a rich deposit of unobtainium. After intense air combat, Quaritch escapes in a highly advanced amp suit and faces off with Jake on the ground. Just as Quaritch prepares to slit Jake's throat, Neytiri fires a series of arrows that strike Quaritch in the chest and ultimately kill him.
Scorpions, pursue and destroy.
Jake, you copy?
The VFX on display in this one sequence are just absolutely mind-blowing. Cameron used a hybrid of live-action filming and CGI, hiring the effects company Weta Digital, co-founded by Peter Jackson, who at one point employed 900 people just to work on this one film. The crew developed innovative methods for motion and full performance capture, allowing Cameron to render complex body and facial expressions in a way no one had ever done. VFX company Industrial Light and Magic, founded by George Lucas of course, also teamed up with Weta to render many of the film's specialized vehicles and CGI explosions, specifically during this battle sequence. It's no surprise Avatar won Best Visual Effects and became the highest-grossing film ever, and rumor has it, the film even made George Lucas a little jealous when he saw it. The steel mill fight, Terminator 2 Judgment Day.
Go, run!
No, we gotta stick together!
John, you got to go now.
John!
Go, now!
No!
The steel mill fight in Terminator 2 Judgment Day features not just one Terminator, but two. Set 11 years after the first Terminator, John Connor is now a kid, meaning Skynet's original plan of killing Sarah Connor and preventing her from having a child failed. So, what do? Well, they send another Terminator back in time to finish the job. But this time, it's the T-1000, a shape-shifting android made of liquid metal that can basically ooze his way into any situation. Luckily for Sarah and John, Arnold's also been sent back from the future, reprogrammed as an ally and sworn protector of Sarah and John, which is how the T-800 and the T-1000 end up dueling in this steel mill. It's a bit disconcerting to see the unstoppable, fear-induced villain from Terminator 1 be seemingly overpowered and outsmarted by an even more menacing villain, but it's a testament to Cameron's ability to constantly reinvent and raise the stakes in his storylines. The T-1000 was brilliantly portrayed by Robert Patrick, and a shocking $5 million was spent just on the special effects for this character alone. Industrial Light and Magic used a combination of practical effects, light-matching CGI, and visual illusions to animate and render the complex T-1000, and at the time, these techniques were praised for being technological wonders. Tech-noir fight, the Terminator. Arnold is back to being the bad guy in the tech-noir fight from Terminator. At this point in the film, Sarah is unaware of the true reason she is being hunted down. She doesn't know of Skynet or robot assassins or Reese's role. The police assure Sarah that she'll be safe in the crowded club and instruct her to hang out there until they arrive. But a room packed with questionable fashion choices isn't gonna stop the Terminator from accomplishing his mission, and soon he tracks Sarah down and attempts to shoot her. This is when Reese intervenes and rescues Sarah, repeatedly firing his shotgun at the Terminator point blank.
Come with me if you want to live.
Everything about this scene is iconic, from the characters to the set dressing to the music. Cameron's ability to create an atmosphere is unrivaled. He even coined the club Tech Noir because that's how he viewed his film, a blend of sci-fi and film noir. But what really makes this scene so special is the rising suspense as the principal characters all converge on screen for the first time in this film. It sets the tone for the entire franchise, and the viewer knows in this moment that Sarah's life will never be the same. Bridge chase, True Lies.
Bingo!
Good shooting, Marines.
Cameron and Schwarzenegger join forces again for the bridge chase in True Lies. Arnold plays Harry Tasker, a secret spy masquerading as a dull salesman who fears his neglected wife Helen, played by Jamie Lee Curtis, might be having an affair. But that becomes the least of his worries when Harry and Helen are kidnapped by a terrorist group and must now save the world while also saving their marriage. Jury is out on which one is more difficult there. These events culminate in one of the most epic action sequences ever shot on a bridge, and another classic Arnie line: "The bridge is out!"
The bridge is out!
What?
The bridge is out!
I can't hear you! What? Oh God! The bridge is out! The bridge is out, Harry!
For this scene, Cameron's team utilized a mix of miniatures, live action, pyro, and CG missiles. For the live action elements, the crew filmed at the real 7 Mile Bridge in the Florida Keys, but of course they didn't blow up the real bridge, so the engineers at Stetson Visual Services built a 100-meter long replica made mostly of plaster. But the most impressive shot of this entire sequence, in my opinion at least, is when Harry pulls Helen out of the limo just before it crashes into the water below, leaving the two dangling from a helicopter as they escape. This sequence was captured fully in camera, with Curtis doing most of the stunts herself. Yes, she actually did dangle from a helicopter. Maybe Curtis should have played a Terminator at some point, I'm just saying. Ripley vs. the Xenomorph Queen, Aliens.
Come on!
Where there's a hive, there's probably a queen, and Aliens builds up to a horrifying reveal and inevitable battle between Ripley and the Xenomorph Queen. But this queen picked the wrong human to mess with. At this point, Ripley isn't just a survivor, she's a warrior with a young girl to protect, strapped into an exosuit cargo loader. Kinda leaves me feeling bad for the alien, honestly. Cameron wanted this killer queen to be guaranteed to blow your mind anytime. So Cameron and SFX pioneer Stan Winston teamed up to build a 14-foot tall monster made of rubber foam with a pair of puppeteers stuffed inside to operate the arms. A hydraulic system had to be installed in the queen's neck, connected to a steering system for movement, with the face being another separate system. not to mention a crane that offered extra support for the Queen's body. Depending on the shot, there were up to 16 people handling this giant beast at one time. And still, I think Weaver could have taken all of them, exosuit or not. Thanks to scenes like this one, Aliens took home the Oscar for Best Visual Effects. Tow truck chase, Terminator 2 Judgment Day. Our two favorite Terminators face off again in the tow truck chase scene from Terminator 2. This time, the T-1000 steals a semi-tow truck and chases John Connor, who flees on his Honda motorcycle, weaving in and out of traffic, then through the Los Angeles drainage system. Arnie's close behind on his Harley-Davidson Fat Boy, sporting his iconic leather jacket and dark shades. Who teaches robots how to dress in the future? Fans would probably pay top dollar to look as cool as Arnold does here. There are so many impressive stunts in this scene. Notably, Arnold's huge motorcycle jump, which was achieved using cranes and wires so that stuntman Peter Kent could fly 85 feet through the air at 35 miles per hour and not injure himself. Audiences were also shocked by the futuristic CGI used to portray the T-1000 in all his liquid metal glory emerging from the truck explosion. Apparently, Cameron conceived this entire scene at the moment he first envisioned the T-1000 in his mind, and since the original idea for the Terminator came to him during a fever dream in Rome, he decided to trust his gut, or his brain rather. Jake rides a Banshee, Avatar.
That's right. You're mine.
First flight seals the bond. You cannot wait. Think, fly!
Fly?
Next up, Jake rides a Banshee in Avatar. As we discussed earlier, Jake, Sully, and Neytiri have formed a powerful bond, and the more time Jake spends with the Na'vi, the more he feels like a part of their tribe. But as we're taught from an early age, you can't just become a part of the Na'vi without first riding a wild Banshee, or as I like to call them, beautiful, scary, alien pterodactyl thingies. Neytiri takes Jake to the top of the mountain where the Banshees nest and guides him through the difficult task of breaking one of these creatures, similar to how a cowboy would break a horse. Jake struggles but eventually captures a Banshee and seals a bond when they take their initially clumsy first flight.
Level out! That's it.
Jake earns his place among the Na'vi and further solidifies his bond with Neytiri as the two glide through the air on Banshee back. This scene is just nothing short of breathtaking. Cameron admitted that this is his favorite moment in the movie, though it proved to be one of the more complex scenes to shoot due to the mounted rigs that had to be built for the actors to ride. Not sure why they didn't just use a real Banshee. What's the big deal? The water tentacle, the abyss.
Sweet Christ almighty. I think it likes you.
And last up, the water tentacle scene from The Abyss. Come on, you didn't think we were gonna skip this one, did you? The film follows a search team as they race to recover an American submarine that sunk under mysterious circumstances. Early in the movie, the crew encounters strange lights which they label as a non-terrestrial intelligence, aka an NTI. After a storm hits, the NTI forms an animated water tentacle, which they use to examine and explore the crew's vessel. Michael Biehn's character, Navy SEAL Lieutenant Coffey, becomes agitated and closes a pressure bulkhead on the magical entity, causing it to retreat. But not before it adorably mimics some of the crew members' faces. Cameron hired Industrial Light and Magic to render the computer graphics for what was informally labeled the Water Weenie, and cast members had their facial expressions scanned using a software which then created computer-generated sculptures that could be composited on the tentacle. For 75 seconds of computer graphics, it took ILM 6 months of hard work. I think we can all agree it was time well spent, because not only is the Water Weenie one of the funniest nicknames ever for an alien life form, but this scene also helped earn The Abyss the Oscar for Best Visual Effects. And that wraps up our list of the most iconic James Cameron scenes. As is always the case, we didn't have time to discuss every noteworthy Cameron moment. There are just far too many to name here, but do not fret, we've got plenty of RT Essentials coming your way, so I'm sure we'll get there eventually. Thanks again for tuning in. I'm Perry Nemroff. Hasta la vista, baby.